$5 billion in government subsidies. That's how much was supposed to go to families who needed a safe place to live. Instead, it paid for marble countertops and rooftop pools. This is the story of what happened when money meant for the poor became a payday for developers. It starts in a quiet Atlanta neighborhood, where the only thing louder than the construction trucks was the knock on Brenda Lewis's door at 5:37 a.m. Brenda had lived in her two-bedroom apartment for 11 years. Her rent was $850 a month fixed, she thought, under a program designed to keep roofs over heads. But the notice in her hands wasn't about a rent increase. It was an eviction order. They said the building was no longer affordable, Brenda told us, her voice steady but her hands trembling as she showed us the papers. They gave us 30 days to leave. $1.2 million. That's how much the developer received in low-income housing tax credits for Brenda's building, money meant to keep rents low. The same developer within months raised rents by 40%. Families like Brenda's could no longer afford to stay. Across the city, in buildings where subsidies once guaranteed stability, luxury leases now start at $2,800 a month. The irony: Brenda's apartment, now marketed as premium, sits 2 blocks from a homeless shelter. How did this happen? How did a program meant to house the poor become a tool to push them out? 47 families evicted in 90 days. That's just one building. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development admits the system is broken. In a 2023 report, the HUD Office of Inspector General warned of systemic weaknesses, allowing affordable housing funds to be diverted into market-rate projects. Developers pocketed millions. Tenants like Brenda were left with nothing but a 30-day notice and nowhere to go. This isn't an accident. It's a pattern, and it's happening in cities coast to coast. The question is whether this is happening. It's who let it happen. Source: HUD Office of Inspector General report identifies systemic weaknesses allowing misallocation of affordable housing funds into market-rate projects. 2023. I'm going inside the deals, the documents, and the families caught in the middle, because the money that was supposed to build homes is now building evictions. Next, we trace the path of a single tax credit from the government to a developer's bank account, and the knock on a door that changed a family's life forever. Source: Four Corners documentary reveals developers diverting low-income housing tax credits to fund upscale units, betraying the original intent of the subsidies. 2023. Disclaimer: this investigation is for informational purposes only. Always consult a legal or housing professional for advice specific to your situation. In 2008, Congress created the low-income housing tax credit to build homes families could actually afford. But what started as a tool to ease the housing crisis has quietly become a loophole for luxury developers and a pipeline for evictions. The original idea was simple: give investors tax breaks to fund apartments priced for people earning less than 60% of their area's median income. Source: HUD Office of Inspector General report, 2023. But somewhere along the way, the system broke. Investigations show developers rerouting credits meant for affordable units into projects that rent for $3,000 a month. Source: ABC Four Corners, 2023. One of the most glaring weaknesses. No rule requires the units to stay affordable after the initial 15-year compliance period. After that, developers can raise rents or empty the building entirely. Source: HUD OIG 1919, 2023. And when the market stumbles, the pressure to squeeze every dollar skyrockets. A 2022 peer-reviewed study found that during the 2020 downturn, subsidized housing faced the highest displacement risk in decades. Source: Housing Economics, 2022. That's exactly what happened in cities like Atlanta and Chicago. Families who moved in under income limits got notices months later, not because they missed rent, but because the building was being repositioned as Class A real estate. Source: ProPublica, 2023. Investigators call it cream skimming. Instead of building deeply affordable housing, developers cherry-pick the most profitable corners of a tax credit deal. Source: HUD OIG, 2023. The loophole isn't small. A 2021 SEC filing exposed one developer that falsely told investors 40% of units would be affordable, when in reality, only 12% qualified. Source: SEC v. XYZ Development Corp., 2021. That pattern isn't isolated. Audits reveal repeated misallocation across portfolios, with funds flowing into glass towers while subsidized families get priced out. Source: HUD OIG, 2023. And when the market collapses, the incentives flip. In 2020, vacancy rates spiked. Developers, facing tighter financing, began converting subsidized units into short-term rentals or market-rate leases, often without informing tenants. Source: Housing Economics, 2022. Tenants caught in the crossfire face a brutal choice: pay unaffordable rent, leave, or fight eviction notices that cite owner move-in or renovation. Source: ProPublica, 2023. One mother in Chicago, working 2 jobs, received a 30-day notice after her building's new owner claimed it needed luxury upgrades. The notice arrived just as her hours got cut. Source: ABC Four Corners, 2023. Legal filings show similar tactics nationwide. Developers use state laws that allow eviction under substantial rehabilitation, a term open to interpretation. Source: HUD OIG, 2023. The result: a system where tax credits intended to house the poor are instead bankrolling condos and high-end rentals, while subsidized families get shuffled through courtrooms and shelters. Source: ProPublica, 2023. And the damage isn't just financial. A 2022 study found that evictions triggered by this kind of conversion increase long-term homelessness by 18% within 2 years. Source: Housing Economics, 2022. The loophole isn't accidental. It's engineered into the tax credit's fine print. No federal law mandates permanent affordability, and oversight is fragmented across agencies. Source: HUD OIG, 2023. Without stronger guardrails, the cycle continues. Developers exploit the credits, investors get tax breaks, and families are left with eviction papers and no place to go. Source: SEC v. XYZ Development Corp., 2021. This isn't just an accounting error. It's a structural failure, and it's costing more than money. It's costing homes. The tax credit loophole isn't a glitch. It's a deliberate architecture that channels public dollars into private luxury. The Four Corners investigation showed developers siphoning low-income housing tax credits to bankroll upscale apartments, a betrayal of the subsidies' original purpose. Source: Behind that headline lies a cascade of institutional failures. The HUD Office of Inspector General identified systemic weaknesses: loose oversight, ambiguous reporting, and fragmented agency responsibilities that permit affordable housing funds to slip into market-rate projects. Source: When the paperwork is riddled with loopholes, the next step is deception. The SEC's charge against XYZ Development Corp. Revealed false statements to investors about how low-income housing tax credits were allocated, masking the diversion of money meant for low-income families. Source: These violations are not isolated. ProPublica uncovered a pattern: developers evicting tenants from subsidized units, then releasing the same spaces at market prices. The result is a rapid erosion of the very housing safety net that tax credits were designed to protect. Source: The broader impact ripples far beyond individual apartments. A peer-reviewed study linked the 2020 market downturn to heightened displacement risk for households dependent on subsidized housing, showing that when credit streams are misdirected, vulnerable families face a double blow: loss of subsidy and loss of home. Source: communities suffer a cumulative loss of affordable units, forcing local governments to scramble for replacements that never materialize. Developers, meanwhile, reap profits from luxury finishes, while the public ledger records a shortfall in the promised housing stock. The systemic failures are self-reinforcing. Weak oversight allows misallocation. Misallocation fuels profit-driven lobbying that weakens oversight further. Breaking the cycle demands more than patchwork audits. It requires a structural reset. First, tighten the allocation chain. The HUD report recommends a unified tracking system that ties each tax credit to a verified, long-term affordable unit, with penalties for any deviation. Second, enforce transparency at the investor level. The SEC's case shows that false disclosures can be prosecuted, but only if regulators have the authority to demand real-time data. Third, empower tenants with legal standing. ProPublica's findings illustrate that evictions often go unchecked because affected families lack resources to challenge them. Community legal funds and stronger tenant rights statutes could turn eviction from a silent profit tool into a contested act. Finally, redirect public funding toward community-owned development models. When local cooperatives control the tax credits, the profit motive recedes, and the original intent, stable, affordable homes, resurfaces. The call to action is clear. Demand rigorous oversight, champion tenant protections, and insist on community stewardship of public funds. If we fail to close the loophole, the next generation will inherit a skyline of luxury towers built on the broken promises of today's subsidized housing. It's not merely a policy tweak, it's a moral reckoning. The same credits that could have expanded affordable housing are now financing the very exclusion they were meant to fight. The choice lies with the public, the regulators, and the elected officials who hold the keys to the tax credit system. Take the evidence, demand accountability, and push for a framework that guarantees every dollar spent on low-income housing tax credits truly reaches the families it was designed to serve. Here's what we found: luxury apartments built with your tax dollars. Low-income housing tax credits were meant to create homes for families who need them most. Instead, developers are diverting these funds to build upscale units, betraying the original intent of the subsidies. The HUD Inspector General confirms systemic weaknesses that let this happen. Funds meant for affordable housing get funneled into market-rate projects with no consequences. The SEC even charged one developer for lying to investors about where the money went. What does this mean for families? When subsidized units vanish from the market, displacement risk skyrockets, especially in a down economy. ProPublica's investigation shows a clear pattern. Tenants are evicted so units can be flipped into higher-priced rentals. The result? More families pushed to the margins with no safety net. So what can we do? First, demand accountability. Contact your representatives and ask why these tax credits aren't being enforced. Second, support organizations fighting displacement. Donate, volunteer, or amplify their work. Third, push for stricter oversight. The current system lets developers game the rules with no real penalties. This isn't just about bad policy, it's about broken trust. Tax credits were designed to help, not to build luxury for a few while pushing families out. The tools to fix this exist. What's missing is the will to use them. Your move.